guys, welcome back to Panic Button Podcast, where we talk about mental health, how we figure it out, why we figure it out, how to get through it, and everything that comes with that. So if you've caught up to this point in the podcast, you would know that I talk about the weather a lot. And I think that I jinxed it for everyone because here in Illinois, we literally had 60-degree weather, and I shit you not, the next day we had snow. So I pissed somebody off in the universe. I did something. I will take full blame for that. Don't come for me. I promise spring is coming. That little groundhog saw his shadow, or he didn't. I don't know. I always get it mixed up, but spring is coming and we're good. So full transparency again. Totally sorry that I stirred things up for everyone. But it's sunny again today, and I'm hoping that, again, spring is here. Like, let's go. We need this. And yeah. Okay, so weather rant over. So doing a mental health check-in today, I'm feeling good, and I've felt good the past week or so. And I got my vitamins tested finally because I wanted to make sure that there weren't any deficiencies there that could be leading to me feeling more anxious or anything along those lines. And I actually found out I have a vitamin D deficiency. Shocker, it's probably because all the sun we don't get in Illinois for most of the months. And I do have a deficiency in B12. So I found out from my physician that, that can affect our nervous system. So now I'm like, great. So I'm taking vitamins as well as continuing my medication daily for anxiety and panic disorder. So I'm hoping that this little anxiety cocktail, if you'll say that, is going to help my mood and I'm going to see a difference. And I've done some research on my own that has shown that when you do have healthy levels of B12, you start to feel lighter. And especially if you do battle anxiety or panic disorder, it helps and it can help. So I'm hoping for that. So fingers crossed for me, but definitely get your vitamins checked if you never have in a while and you do battle a mental illness, because it could be something as taking a supplement over the counter that hopefully, again, doesn't completely fix me or, fix the situation, but it helps because that's obviously what we're looking for. So I do have a special guest today that can add a lot of value to that conversation of vitamin deficiencies and really how to prioritize your basic needs to improve your mental health well-being. We have Rachael Jamison on here with us, and her philosophy is get back to basics. She's learned from her own experience as well as working with thousands of patients, prioritizing basic needs like sleep, movement, hormone health, and nutrition means utilizing a holistic, whole-body approach to support mental wellness needs. When coupled with talk therapy, it can also greatly increase the chances of being able to live the most balanced life possible. She's also a double board licensed clinical social worker and addiction therapist. And she also has provided supportive therapy services in a variety of settings, exposing her to an array of wellness issues from traditional mental health concerns to life transitions, relationship grief, etc. And she is taking on new patients as well. She would like to welcome the opportunity to be part of your healing journey. So without further ado, Rachael, are you here with us?
Hello, and I just could listen to your Illinois accent for the rest of the time. Thank you
Okay,
for
do
the
you
great
think
intro.
that's real? Because everyone says that, and I'm like, I don't have an accent. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, it's alive and well, and it just sort of warms your heart. By the time
Well, I
we're done here,
appreciate
I may
that.
pick
That's
it
the
up.
nicest thing someone's ever said to me in a while.
Yeah, no, it's great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry I got tongue-tied there reading your
Oh,
bio. Sometimes
no.
I forget how to function when I'm doing these. So I don't know if it's stress overload and my brain is no, you can't read
Man,
today.
I
But
I used to this is probably a little TMI, but finally by the time I got to college, I was I think I might have some anxiety with reading out loud, and I was a English literature major, and so we had to read out loud a lot. So I finally got the nerve to ask just can I have a pass, because then it would be my turn and I would totally forget how to read. So I
yeah,
probably you know
I think that we do that, and I don't know why. It's a basic skill that we've known for however long. And you're when
yeah
you're doing it, you're nope, not today. I
yeah
don't know
no
what that word means. Or if
I,
somebody puts you on the spot and asks you how to spell something, you're oh
yeah
my God.
yeah it's a total I mean, I think it is anxiety related, but it's like a brain blackout in a way. Like, don't ask me to spell my name if I have to do it in front of a bunch of people, you know?
I'll write it down. It'll be
Yes.
easier.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's glad to know that I'm not alone.
No,
That
no, not at all. No judgment either.
you have also experienced that. So,
Yes. Good company.
but yeah, jumping right into it. If you don't mind, like, go ahead and tell us a little bit about your mental health journey.
Oh man, I'm gonna try to figure out a way to say it in kind of this short and sweet. Um, so I let's see. Currently, I am in a really good place, but I did not always used to be. For a long time, probably looking back, probably starting as a kid, but I just didn't have the vocabulary for it then. But certainly into my college years, I struggled a lot with anxiety, like depression at times, but the anxiety and even ADHD was alive and well. And so I did the things that you're supposed to do for years. So I was in therapy. I was taking, I think at the time I was taking Zoloft, probably I think Xanax at some point as well. I got really into running because it was free. I just needed a pair of shoes. And so you could do it
We have
anywhere.
free here.
Yeah. So I was like, I could do that for my mental health. So I did that and journaling and meditation and like, probably by my mid 30s, like I was really good at doing all the things. And I'd been practicing, let's see, I graduated from graduate school with my master's in social work in 2009. So I had been practicing by the time I was in my mid 30s for you know not quite 10 years. Um, and so I was educating people every day on how to manage anxiety and depression, and I still couldn't get mine. I just couldn't get mine to be under control. Um, and so eventually, I got to the point where I sort of stabilized for a while. I am not like super proud to say there was definitely a period of time where I leaned into the party life and was definitely drinking too much and staying out too late and over exercising, just sort of as a means, all of it for coping. And when you're busy doing that, then you also think like, oh, maybe it's not mental health. Maybe I'm just hungover, or maybe I'm fatigued, tired from working out or whatever. So really for me, when the dust settled, I was probably 35, 37. And I just like, I hit a wall and I felt awful. My symptoms were really raging. And so I had taken a period off of, like, medication and therapy because I didn't feel like I needed it at the time, but I jumped right back in with it. And so I was doing all the things, and I just remember, excuse me, I was on a walk as you're supposed to do, and I was talking to my best friend so I could get that connection. And I was just like, she's known me my whole life, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I am in tears and I am shaking and I just feel awful. It's like, something's not right. Something has to give. So for better or for worse, then I ended up, and hopefully this isn't all just a bit of TMI, but I ended up losing my period. And that's when, like, I had pretty extreme weight gain. Like, people would always tell me, like, oh, I don't know why you look like that. Like, you bike to work and you run marathons and you do all this stuff. Like, yeah, I was doing
Like,
a lot.
thank you.
Uh-huh. Yeah. I don't know why I'm looking like this either, guys. Thanks. But I was doing so much. And so, as it goes, like, especially for women's health, I mean, I couldn't get the weight gain, or the fatigue that I was having, or brain fog. Like, I couldn't get any of that stuff addressed. And certainly, anxiety and depression, it just sort of like was that run of the mill, take these prescriptions and get out of the office. But when I lost my period, that's when the flag went off. So I called my gynecologist, who thankfully was out of town, and I got the backup guy who is now my primary number one, who has helped me through this stuff. But he tested me for he tested my like nutrient levels and my hormones, and turns out I had like no vitamin D in my system. And so he put me on injections, and within like, I don't know, 48 hours, my anxiety was like, it was like night and day. I felt like a brand new person. I was able to, yeah, I just was able to function better. And so that's my journey. And as I was going through that, I also was having some thyroid issues and an Epstein-Barr flare-up, which I was not really familiar with at the time. And so trying to figure all that stuff out. At the same time, I was working at let me see how to say it. It was sort of like they refer to themselves as the Harvard of the South, this prestigious institute. And I was working in psychiatry and addictions there, and as I was learning the effects of like substance use and nutrient deficiency and how it can cause symptoms that look and feel like anxiety and depression, nobody was testing for that. Nobody was asking that. So I would have patients who were on medications, for these symptoms on SSRIs or whatever, and not getting better. And so as I was learning through my journey, kind of the holistic piece that could be involved, it's sort of where I shifted my whole change in how I wanted to approach my career and how I wanted to help patients. And so it was a big light bulb moment for me to be able to learn what I did. And I'm still trying to learn and apply the things as I go and help patients along the way.
Yeah, that's, using that personal experience, obviously, like you had the upper hand right away. And that wasn't something that I'm sure that you learned in school either.
Oh, 100%. That's a great feedback there. Yeah, 100%. No, we never talked about that in school. I worked at an outpatient drug treatment clinic postgraduate, which I loved. I mean, I loved working there, but that's never anything that we talked about there either, which was unfortunate. And maybe it wasn't as mainstream there. I don't know. Because when it came into my life, it was brand new to me. And so unfortunately, as we have to do, I spent I felt so bad. Like I was at the point where I was locking my door in between patients while I was at my office to take a nap. Like I really couldn't function. And so
you mean all therapists don't do that?
I mean, really, that's why we have the couch,
I thought as soon as I walked out, y'all were taking a 20-minute nap.
Man, that would assume we were ending sessions on time. We're lucky if we get to the bathroom, but it's the amount of research that I had to do on my own. I mean, it essentially felt like a second job, and I am very grateful to. I know Instagram isn't always the greatest of communities, but I'm really grateful to the people and the resources I was able to connect with on there, so I could. For me, what I did was just sort of track the commonalities. I learned what a lot of experts were saying, and then I kind of picked and choose what I wanted to apply to my life and my protocols, so I could go to my doctor and say, okay, here's what I learned. What do you think about this? Can we do something different? So unfortunately, I don't have a medical degree still, but so yeah, that's been my experience with it, and it's fascinating to me, just like how the mind and the body work in that way. It's getting more credit than it used to, but I think it still has a long way to go.
Yeah, I mean, and that brings up, like, I've been thinking this whole time, like, do you still think that, like, we are not talking about that enough, or, like, our physicians are not bringing up the fact that you could have a deficiency vitamin level somewhere, and that could be sparking, this anxiety or this depression or whatever that may be?
Yes, the short answer is yes. I think that conversation is not happening nearly enough, and even this last week, I went to 2 different doctor's appointments. Nobody asked me about my diet. Nobody asked me about my sleep. The gynecologist, you have to write, like when you go there, you write on your sheet when your period was. Like nobody asked me about any of those things. So we didn't have a conversation about it. The burden falls on the patient to have to like bring that up. And I happen to have that awareness, and I happen to have access to the resources to be able to learn these things. But there's so many people out there that don't even know to question it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know to question it until we had previously spoke, and you kind of whispered in my ear, like, hey, have you ever, got your vitamins checked? And From that point, I was like thinking about it. I hadn't in a couple of years because I was like, there was no reason to. My doctor never ordered it, kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
So then when I did reach out to my physician to get that ordered, they were like, why?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like I had to bring that information to them. And I was like, well, my anxiety and my panic disorder has been like out of whack recently. So I want to make sure that there's no deficiency that could correlate to such a thing because that's pretty common.
Yeah, it is really common. And I think, the social worker in me, that's where I've landed with my patients. Cause unfortunately, I'm not at a place where I can order labs. Otherwise, man, I would be doing it for everybody. But all I can do is encourage them and advocate for like, here's XYZ to ask for, because I mean, I guess my disclaimer is I obviously I'm in the field of mental health because I believe in it, and I believe in the support of medication, and also I believe in the holistic piece too that just gets that just doesn't get enough light on it, I guess. But I think the in some ways, like, I think, why don't you go do your labs, and then if it's none of those things, if all that stuff checks out, okay, so now you know, and now we know that it's 100% something that's going on from the neck up. So more of that brain piece, the brain chemicals, versus like the rest of your body that may be causing symptoms that feel like mental health issues.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly what it ended up, hopefully, like with my situation. And
Yeah.
again, I'm not saying that obviously if people get their vitamin checked, and I don't think you're saying that either, that it's like you're cured. There could be
Right.
a vitamin deficiency and that's it.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you said, it could, a B12 deficiency could affect our nervous system. So
Yeah.
it's not like 100%
Yeah.
that's what that has to be, but it's good to have that knowledge in your back pocket. Like, well, I do have
Totally.
this deficiency and I do suffer from severe anxiety,
Totally.
so do they go hand in hand? Yes.
Yeah.
Could they not? Yes.
Yeah.
So it's like
Exactly.
you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't at that point, because you're
Right.
like, I want to go get my blood drawn and like all that
No.
shit. I'm like, ugh,
Yeah.
I don't want to
Yeah.
go. But, now
Nobody
I
does.
found out that I do have a B12 deficiency, and I'm like, I wonder how long I've had that.
And to make matters even more complicated, so I there's kind of the traditional range of lab work, and then there's what they call the optimal range. So it's optimal range is a smaller range there. So for me personally, I want to be in the optimal range, because the normal range, the traditional normal range of our lab values, like, you can be, your doctor can kind of slap you on the butt and get you out of there and say, yeah, you're normal, you're good to go. But you're actually on the very end of the traditional range. And for you, that actually may be too low. That may actually be abnormal. And so yeah, it just is like that advocacy that you have to do for yourself. Unfortunately, sorry, you've said the word unfortunately like 1,000 times on this episode. But it's a whole unfortunate situation of the
That's
healthcare
unfortunate.
system. I'll listen to this back, and that's all that I'll hear in my ear. But yeah, you just really have to like go in guarded. And to your point earlier, that if if you're in a position where you maybe don't have any
Hello?
coping skills and you don't know how to do any of the mental health
I
stuff,
think I
and
lost
if you've
you.
had a deficiency or
Oh,
a hormonal imbalance for like a while. Oops, did I lose you?
nope, we're good now. It's going back.
Oh, okay, cool. Um, I just was gonna add, yeah, if you've had hormonal issues or nutrient deficiencies for a while, and you haven't learned any of the like therapeutic coping skills. So say you go get your labs done and it is one of those things, and they say, okay, here's what you need to do. And it's a quick solve that way, that your values can go back up and technically your body is in working condition again. But if you haven't practiced any of those behavioral things, the therapeutic things in that way, then yeah, there's still therapy work to do, because potentially, right, if you've had the B12 deficiency and you've had crippling anxiety, that may have caused you, and that's really all that was going on, right? You don't have necessarily the brain chemical anxiety, like generalized anxiety going on. you've still created habits as a result of that being off. So maybe you've isolated yourself more. You've maybe become scared to go, like, be in, in social situations. Maybe you've been drinking more to manage the anxiety. So yeah, they do go hand in hand. They do go hand in hand, mental health and all of these things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy how everything is like correlated that I've noticed the more people that I've talked to in the community and the more
Yeah.
information and like sharing everyone's story. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and that's why I continue to do this because like we're all learning something in different pieces that we can grab from each other of like, hey, go get your vitamins checked or,
Yeah.
try this and try that. And yeah, I mean, again, that's just all the parts of trying to figure it out and getting through it. And I
Yeah.
mean, and I know that you're good at prioritizing like those basic needs. So what else does that look like?
Oh, that's a good question. So for me, like, when we look at the basics, and I think probably it was like the pandemic summer of 2020, and every patient I saw, I was like, okay, we got to get back to basics. Like, somehow I tagged it in my head as like, this is the thing that we got to do this summer, and it really stuck because I was seeing the benefits that people were having with their mental health. So basic needs, right? Like nutrition, movement, sleep, uh, hydration, community, connection with people. Those are sort of the things that, like, we want to make sure we're taking care of all of those things, because if those are at a deficit, then already it's going to affect our mood, right? So doing those things first, it's also, give or take, that's also a free way to approach it if you're not ready to start therapy or you don't feel like you want to get on medication yet or anything like that. Like, making sure to take care of your basics is a great place to start. So yeah, I mean, I can. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, that brings up a good point because I remember talking to my therapist and telling her, like, I like talking to people. Like, if I'm
Yeah.
not doing something, like, I want to call my mom
Oh yeah.
or catch up with a friend. Like, so yeah, I mean, we do, as soon as we get that, like, human interaction and connection, it is like stimulating to our mood.
And I think the longer that we, for some of us at least, the longer that we go without it, the more used to it we get, and we don't even remember that, like, actually we do need to be connecting with people, because then you finally, because it can make you feel a little anxious to do it if you haven't done it in a while. You're like, oh, I don't need to go to this party or whatever, and then you do, and then it can fill your cup or whatever. So um but it's well, I was just listening to a podcast episode recently. I can't remember what it's called, but about the mind and the body and that sort of thing, and it was so interesting. So I don't know if you see this as much in the Chicago area, but Atlanta in the summer it gets really fucking hot, like, and so this episode was talking about kind of heat waves and how that affects mental health. And so, just kind of as an example of sort of that basic need piece, like, the idea was that people aren't going to commit crimes because they're hot, but if you think about the ripple effect of it, right? So say you have a really hot night, maybe even if the AC and stuff is working, right? Like, you just may be hot and uncomfortable. So then your sleep isn't so good. And so maybe that makes you a little bit irritable. It's hot outside, and so maybe you're not drinking enough water, and so then your electrolytes are low, and so that can cause you feelings of, like, anxiety, maybe some depression, some irritability, moodiness, that sort of thing. And it just sort of can escalate, and thankfully not for all of us, but this, I think they were looking at research tracked by the FBI, and it was saying in summer months when the heat is like 92 or above, they tend to see more violent crimes. People are committing more violent crimes versus, like, fraud or whatever, because kind of
I've
as a
heard
result.
that. So
Yeah, people go crazy. You can really go crazy if you're not taking care of yourself in a way to, like, be able to handle a heat wave. You know what I mean?
well, I mean, I overall, like, just being fully honest with everyone here, I
Yep.
mean, I get pissed off when I'm hot
Oh, same.
because you get irritable. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I love the summer. I absolutely love the summer. Nothing beats it. The sun feels great on your skin and the wonders that it does. And everyone here knows I harp on that all the time. But I mean, yeah, like if you get too hot and like nothing's helping, like yeah, I get a little pissy, like
Yeah.
because you get
Yeah,
like
exactly.
irritable and it's like, oh, like you can't escape it. Like you said, even if the air conditioning's on, like that's why, like obviously if you're cold, you can layer up, but if you're hot and you're standing there butt
You're
ass
done
naked and you're
so.
still hot, like you're
Right.
gonna be a little bit like feisty.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it's just really like it supports kind of how cool the body is even when it's hot, but like the way in which it tries to regulate ourselves. Like um I think the other, I don't know if I had talked to you about this last time you and I chatted, but so I've been trying to run, maybe even prepare for a half marathon next month. And I've been running for years, like as I mentioned earlier, like it was free, so I use it for a coping skill. Um, but I hadn't ran in a really long time, and so just trying to get back into it. And I 100% know better, but I went out for a longer run than I had done in years, and I didn't properly fuel my body before, and certainly I was in no condition afterwards to do so. But it was a real quick reminder of how overexerting ourselves and maybe not fueling our body properly, either electrolyte wise or nutrition wise. Like when I tell you my body, I had like crippling anxiety for, I don't know, maybe like 24 hours to follow that run because my system was just so out of whack because I didn't take care of myself before going into those conditions.
You're really convincing me to go for a run right
I,
now.
I know, right? Yeah, yeah. I had to take a little break
This
myself.
doesn't happen when I sit on my couch, so
That's true, right? So it just also the point of like, um, I know I mentioned movement as a good way to take care of your basics. Like you don't have to move like that, but doing the things that like sometimes I think about it as though you are a baby, and how would you baby yourself, right? Or you want to do some things to really nurture your nervous system and fuel your body in a way that like sets you up for success. Because for me, when I'm working with patients, like for example, this was weird. This was a couple years ago, but I had patients who were reporting anxiety and depression symptoms. And so we did the whole thing. Okay, make sure you're seeing friends, um, go for a walk outside, like nothing that was very extreme. And they were managing the sleep, all that stuff. They were doing all the things, and it was just like, man, this isn't really working. This isn't touching it. And so they all went and got their labs, and everyone was low in iron. Like one person even had to get an iron transfusion because they were so low in iron. And so that's just, I'm really big on taking care of the basics because that's information. If you're doing everything by the book and it's still not working out, like then that's information to take to your doctor, or it gives you a place to start exploring.
right. Yeah, it's like that. It's like you said, taking this information to a physician because you're, being knowledgeable yourself. And sometimes we have to be our biggest advocate in those areas to
Yeah.
make sure that like we have our shit under control first.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really big on, when you're looking at doing this stuff to also be, if you're a patient of mine, you are tired of me saying this, but to be intentional. I want you to be intentional with everything that you do, and less so in the way that like we talk about it, like how therapists talk about it. I want you to be intentional in that, like, I want you to be thoughtful. So you just mentioned kind of like, I don't feel like this when I'm sitting on the couch. Sitting on the couch is I have so many patients who struggle with just like having an off day or a relaxing day or whatever, because when we're not intentional with the time that we're spending, when it's just kind of like we decide to do it on the fly, that comes with so much guilt. You know what I mean? And so much like, oh, I should be being more productive or whatever. So with all of it, when it comes down to basics, like being intentional and planning what you want to do, but also planning what you don't want to do can really impact mental health in that way as well.
Yeah, and it's funny that you mentioned like the downtime thing because I've had that exact conversation with my therapist where
Mm-hmm.
before that I literally like hate just sitting there doing nothing. To
Yeah.
me, it's like giving my anxiety the power to like, okay, well, sit back and relax and I'll take the show.
Yeah.
So I like need to have a very structured day today. And
Yeah.
I've realized that myself. So yeah, me sitting on the couch usually means like I'm exhausted because yeah, I just like, I don't stop. And sometimes it drives my partner a little like nuts, because she'll be like, how do you not just want to like relax and like watch Netflix or something after a long day? And I was like, because I got things to do.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
I'm wasting time. I could be cleaning out the linen closet. I could be reorganizing the pantry. My brain
Right.
like hates just like relaxing.
Well, and there's some, it's, everyone's line is different, but there's definitely a fine line between using that as a coping skill actually for anxiety, right? So in some ways that can actually be really beneficial to be intentional and purposeful in that way of like, you know what, I had a rough day and I'm not ready to like chill out on the couch yet. And so like it can be kind of a way to decompress, to clean the linen closet, fold the
I mean,
laundry.
I'm even the person who like on the weekends, I get up at like 7 o'clock when my alarm would go off
Yes.
Monday through Friday. I usually get up, do the dishes, start vacuuming. Like, and my
Man,
partner's like, what the hell is going on? Like,
that's
just stay
awesome.
in bed and relax. And, but I think I've converted her, because now she does the same thing. She doesn't get up and vacuum, and she'll hate me for saying that, but it's the reality. As I am the vacuumer in this house,
That's
but
great.
she'll get up earlier, and I'm like, see, it feels good, doesn't it? And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna need a nap in a little bit.
It's and taking an intentional and planned nap, like that feels better than just like accidentally falling asleep. And there's not to say that there's not a time and a place where like you don't have to plan everything out, but like if you are a person who struggles with perfectionism or purpose or just even, you know, anxiety and all of those things, then yeah, being deliberate with how you use your time is just is going to be much more this is going to be much more impactful. It's going to feel better.
I'm not a napper. I
Me either,
can't. I don't
man.
know. I never
Yeah.
got into it. Again, I'm a
Yeah.
busybody. Like, I
I,
work remote, so like when work is done, I'm like ready to roll.
yeah. You know what? Actually, that's how I knew something was really wrong with me because even my poor mom, she will talk about, you know, even as a baby, like I was not a napping baby. Like I am up with the sun. But that's how I knew that something was wrong with me and that it was bigger than just like mental health because my body felt so weighted down. All I could do, I mean, I was tired just breathing, you know? Um, so listen to your bodies, everybody, because it is giving you information all the time.
So you still don't really like, you're not still an intentional napper?
Yeah. No. Sorry. I was trying to decide how I wanted to answer that question. The answer is no. No, I don't try. I just don't really nap much. But in the last like, well, actually, since Thanksgiving, I have had the flu twice, and then I think this. I'm waiting for my labs, but I think a Epstein-Barr flare up, and so I have been much more fatigued than I normally would be. So I am sometimes I'm accidentally napping, and that makes me feel guilty too. Versus like going upstairs and getting in your bed for nap time like that feels intentional.
Yeah, again, I just like, I don't know, maybe one day. Like, and I
Mhm.
have a toddler, so I
Oh.
sometimes will be like, I'll take a nap when he naps, and it's like, yeah, that usually never happens.
you know,
I'm like, no, now's the time to clean and do the laundry and all the other things that I could do interruptedly.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, it's a good use of time. Um, it- well, and I was just thinking, I guess, like in terms of some of the stuff, like, because I really could talk about basics in a variety of ways for hours with you. But in terms of the like, nutrient deficiency and hormone imbalance piece that can play into mental health, like, sometimes the causes, I mean, it can be anything, right? But sometimes diet can be a cause of it. So if you're not savvy about it and maybe you tend to lean into like a more vegan diet, if you're not thoughtful about how to get more B vitamins in your system, right? You may be low on B vitamins. Um, we all know stress. Stress is like the culprit for everything. Your environment. So if there's more or less toxins, right, that can influence things. Um, Gut health, substance use, right, like particularly alcohol use that can like rip your gut apart. That you may have trouble absorbing some nutrients, and certainly it doesn't do your hormone health any favors. Autoimmune issues, stuff like that. That can all kind of cause again these things that look and feel like mental health symptoms. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like our body's kind of like a bitch sometimes.
Totally. I always say it. Yeah. Yeah, it really
Like, just setting
it's
us up sometimes for
yeah.
failure.
Yeah, it's really it really can be kind of fussy, and it at least in my own experience, the sometimes it's like a moving target, like, so if you
Yeah,
figure
well,
out
I don't have
how to
very
solve it
good
this way,
aim,
then
so that would explain a lot.
dude. So it's if you are a person who this may resonate with, like, keep talking to your therapist. If you have a primary care or gynecologist, like, talk to them about it. I just was going to run down this list really quick in case I haven't fully harped on it enough, but like things that can cause anxiety and or depression, like symptoms, can be like if your cortisol levels are off, if your estrogen levels are low, or your progesterone levels are low, testosterone's low. That can cause symptoms that look and feel like depression or anxiety. Low magnesium, zinc, vitamin D, B vitamins, iron, omega-3. Those are usually like the usual culprits. If your selenium is off, that also is going to affect your thyroid. Well, it could potentially affect your thyroid. And when your thyroid is even if it's sluggish, it's going to cause probably symptoms that look and feel like depression and anxiety. Sometimes it might actually make you feel like a little manic even too. So
I
yeah, if
love
you
this
think
for us.
dude, I know. If you think you're doing everything right, that's the time to look deeper then. Because you don't, you know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah. Because, like, I had never really, I got diagnosed with anxiety and panic disorder in college, the same as you.
Oh yeah.
And I never, like, I just talked to a therapist, like, on campus and then got a prescription and kind of just moved on for the next 7 years.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
bad as it sounds, it just was like out of sight, out of mind. And then it just kind of would creep in occasionally, like a panic attack here or
Yeah.
there, but now that I'm starting to do the things, like I said, yeah, I have noticed obviously a difference. And I was like, well, I never did get those vitamins checked. Like,
That's
let's mark that off the list. So,
I know you get to tell somebody else about it. I think that's the best we can be doing right now in a way, because if our medical people aren't having the conversation with us, and some of them do, and they're wonderful and great, and I'm glad that they're here. But the ones that aren't having those conversations, right? Like that's why it's important for us to spread the word.
right? Yeah, especially for my physician to be like, well, why do you want to get those tested?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I've had anxiety for 7 years and you've never asked if I have a vitamin deficiency or have checked. I don't know. Why do you make so much more money than me too, doctor?
Always gets me is like, okay, all you have to do is punch it into a computer, sir. I have to go give my blood, and then I have to pay for it. So like, what does it matter to you? Just do the fucking labs. You know what I mean?
It's a process. I hate also getting my blood drawn. It's just like, fuck. Like, and I noticed when they just did the recent draw that they did not have one of the tests included. And I almost like had a fucking fit, like full blown, because I was like, this test, I never got the results. And they're like, oh, it wasn't ordered. I'm like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's on the sheet right here. And before I fully went ape shit, they're like, well, we can add it to the drawing you've already had. I'm like, you thank the fucking Lord you can, because I'm not going again.
No, the effort that is to have to do that. Yeah, that is not okay.
Yeah, because I'm like, I was like, it's on here. So, like, you guys messed up. I did my part. I sat there on a Saturday morning. I was cranky because I had to fast. Like, so I'm sitting there. We're all sitting there looking at each other like, what are you doing after this? Do you want to go to breakfast? Like, and it's just like, I was like, are you kidding me? You guys didn't add this test? Like, and that was like the whole point, because I get my cholesterol checked every couple of months.
Good for you.
And that was like the thing that they were supposed to be checking. Like, the vitamins were just an add-on. And I'm like, dude, you guys like missed the whole thing. Like, it could have been bad for them, because I was really close to going apeshit until the next email back was like, oh, well, we'll add it on to your current draw. And I was like, good day,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Carry on. Uh,
nothing to
it's
see here.
I think I know I wish that there was a way that you could like look at I mean they sometimes they tell you what they've ordered and then they send you back there to do the labs, but I wish you could check them off as you were sitting back there. So that would never happen, you know?
Yeah,
But
because
it
it was on the list. I'm like, here's the order. Like, I'm looking at it and it shows that it should have been like a lipid panel. And I was like,
oh,
and I
that's
got
pretty
all the
standard.
results, but that one. And I'm
Man,
like, so somebody fucked up. And again, it's not me. And I'm not giving you more blood because that was
yeah,
already
yeah.
traumatizing for me. Like, I
It
was
gave
like,
you
so
like
no,
delegated
figure
a lot more.
it out.
Yeah, man. I think you just are kind of reminded me too on I was thinking back to college. I had I somehow had gone my whole life without any medications, and then of course in college I was like, oh, you can get Adderall and that will help with ADHD. Like who knew? But I remember, you know, I went and I got the prescription and I would go back whatever it was like every month or every couple months or whatever. I never asked any questions because I was 20. Why would I ever think to ask a doctor a question about stuff? And I remember on my last trip there, she was like, oh, just so you know, this is prescribed speed. And I was like, what? I no, I didn't know that, and I would have Googled. And so I am not only be careful about how you Google is the disclaimer, and also, if you can look up your symptoms, if you get a prescription, just look into the side effects because with all of this too, right? Even if you're taking something that's supposed to help your mental health, a handful of times it happens where it may have a side effect that is maybe it's making you sleepier, right? Maybe it's making you more irritable, something that feels like it's just valuable for you to know so you can act accordingly. You know what I mean?
It is because you brought up such a good point that I had switched from being on Lexapro for 7 years. As I've told this
Hmm.
story before, everyone's like, holy shit, stop talking about it. I was on it for 7 years and then I
Yeah,
just switched medication 2 months ago to Zoloft.
yeah.
And no one had told me that, like, at one point you could get dizzy spells
Oh,
because I
right.
was on the highest dose of Lexapro. I mean, I have no shame here, like full transparency, whatever.
You
So
want
I
you
was
want
on like
Lexapro.
20 milligrams of that.
Yeah,
And I had started at 50 milligrams of Zoloft, and now I'm at 100, and I've been at 100, and I'm probably going to stay here. I think I found my sweet spot, luckily. So
nice.
it was a pretty easy transition.
Yeah,
But I told my physician, I was like, I'm kind of getting vertigo. And he was like, well, you were on the highest dose of Lexapro. You are not on an equivalent dose of Zoloft. And obviously, that's not how that works. He's like, that's fine. Like, a lot of people don't need the equivalent dose because these
yeah,
medicines work differently. He
yeah.
goes, but you'll have like a equilibrium, like balance issue until your body kind of evens itself out because you're not getting as much serotonin.
I I mean
And
that.
I was like, and nobody fucking told me this. I'm like, so here I am getting dizzy spells. And for me, I'm a very physical feeling person. So
Yeah,
anything that happens to me physically,
yeah.
that's my trigger for my anxiety.
That
So
makes
I'm like, so
sense.
I'm sitting here like fucking having vertigo, like, holy shit, this is the
Yeah,
day I'm going down. And
yeah.
really, it was just like my body acclimating to the change that no one decided to tell me. And like, and I did
Man,
Google it and it said that it was pretty common because I do look up the symptoms because
sure.
I'm nuts like that. Like,
Uh,
I,
We have
I
to
like to
know.
know everything about everything.
Knowledge is power.
Yes. So I was like, okay. I was like, but I don't know. This is like weird. So I did mention it to him. And again, yeah, he told me, he's like, well, yeah, that's totally common. Like a lot of people that get dizzy spells or vertigo, usually I check their medication list to see if there was a recent change
Oh,
because there's going to be a period of like you acclimating. And I'm like,
you,
you should have just seen my face. Like, look at him. Like, are you fucking
no,
kidding me?
I feel like
Like, you couldn't tell me.
I can feel the face over here, you know?
Yeah, I was like, are
Yeah.
you fucking kidding me? I have anxiety. You have to lay everything out on the table for me. I
Yeah.
need to know. Like, you
There's
guys made it fucking worse. You didn't tell me.
there I don't know why this was reminding me as like kind of a similar scenario, but I was thinking about like going into college and also adult life. Like if you're going to use, and I'm a harm reduction girl. So if you're going to use alcohol, like I think I was probably, I mean, definitely at least 30 and probably a little bit past that when I realized like really what was going on with a hangover. Like we know a hangover is is alcohol withdrawal basically, but I didn't realize like just in terms of like that knowledge is power. Like if you're going to drink, right, like be aware of the fact that it is going to deplete you of your vitamin D and your magnesium and your B vitamins. And so that is really why you're going to feel like shit. And so I'm not trying to say go out to the bar right now, do whatever makes sense for everyone that's listening. But like if you're gonna drink, it's just another way of like kind of how when I look at the basics, like, okay, prioritize like taking care of yourself so that you at least can manage these symptoms in a way that like is more responsible, more informed.
Well, yeah, and like you said, knowledge is power. Like, honestly, I know they tell you don't Google things because according to
Yes.
Google, I should have been dead already. We get it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if I wouldn't have like been told specific things from my physician,
Yeah.
which I wasn't, or like again, I have dizzy spells. Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
So like I wasn't told those things and I was curious about it. So then we have to Google because I don't want to like call him every 20 minutes. Like we're
I
not
know.
friends.
Yeah.
Like that shit costs money. They don't just give out their
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just like you gotta go in, you gotta make an appointment, and you're like, I'm feeling dizzy. And they're like, well, yeah, because you just switched medications and you're not getting the same amount of serotonin in your brain. Like, okay, thank you. You could have told me that 2 months ago. Have a good day.
It really would have made a difference. Yeah. Wait, at least you need to advocate for yourself.
Yes, yes. I mean, my physician probably thinks I'm the biggest pain in the ass because like I'll tell him what's wrong with me and like what I have,
Yeah.
and then he's like, "Okay, so let's do like an actual exam."
That's
And I'm like, "Well, okay, we can, but like I did one at home too."
yeah,
So like I just need you to write the prescription because this is what I have.
I really think that there is at least my experience has been I have always been glad that I've gone into the doctor with a list, right? Like making sure that I have done a little bit of Googling so I can say, okay, this and this and this is going on. Like these things resonate with me. Like even as a therapist, I am not living in your mind and your body 24/7. And so I greatly appreciate the fact that if you come to me and you say, hey, I saw this TikTok about ADHD and I feel like I could have that. Okay, then at least if nothing else, it gets our conversation going in a way that like then I can take a deeper look and see, okay, is this going on or is there something else that we need? Do you need to just lay off the coffee or like, do something a little different holistically?
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah. I resonate with that extremely, where it's just the more you know, to me, it feels better. I know some people, they're like, I don't want to know because my anxiety is going to get worse. And
Yeah.
I'm just like, no, I can better set myself up for success
Yeah.
if I have all of those tools.
A
So,
hundred
yeah, my
percent.
physician probably hates me because I'll like pull out my phone and make sure that I like went off my list. And like, I do that to my therapist and she laughs and she appreciates that. So I
Yeah.
guess like I kept the mentality of like, a physician will also appreciate that.
Yeah.
And his staff just kind of looks at me and they're like, oh, I remember you. And I'm like, yeah. They're like,
Thanks for
oh,
having
this
me
bitch
back.
again.
You know, I will say kind of I don't know, that's making me think too of and I know I'm a bit older than you. I'm not at the perimenopause phase yet. I don't think. But learning working with some of my patients who are older or who even have gone through menopause, like that hormonal piece in terms of the basics too, like there's not enough conversation going on around how that can actually that the way that your hormones tank and change that will actually cause you to feel like you're depressed. It may actually cause some of that anxiety. And so um yeah, just Google when appropriate, I guess, so that
Google with caution.
Google with caution. Yeah, just so then like because it's our job is never done as the patient. Our job is never done, and nobody is going to care about us except for us, right? Because the doctor at the end of the day, the doctor gets to go home, and so making sure that you feel equipped. I mean, thank God there podcasts like yours. I mean, there's a million podcasts out there with really great information about this kind of stuff. Um, uh, yeah, just educate yourself when you can, because you probably are gonna you're probably gonna need it at some point.
Right. And if Google told you that you should be dead, just put your phone down, go for a walk for a minute.
Yeah, phone a friend.
Right? You'll be okay. I promise. We'll figure it out.
Yeah. It could also just be that you need a nap or that you need a snack. So carry on.
That's what I like to say. I'm just hangry.
Mm-hmm. There's
That's my go-to.
It's in the recovery world. They use the acronym HALT, HALT, and it stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And so, again, in terms of basics, like that's a place to kind of check in, because if you are one or more of those things, you may be inclined to make a less than healthy decision. And so that's, there's a million memes and jokes on the internet about like take a nap or have a snack, right? Like, but it's because of the way in which when we aren't taking care of those things, like the way it affects our blood sugar, the way that affects our hormones, like, yeah, it's going to make us be in a mood that doesn't feel good. And maybe it's not going to put us in a situation where we're going to make the best decisions mental health wise either.
Yeah, I had said in an episode coming up that I was going to start making t-shirts like for shits and giggles.
Oh, yeah.
I never probably will, but I just wrote down naps and snacks.
Yeah, dream big. That's a shirt people would wear.
Right? Naps and snacks. Like either one, whichever one. Just make sure you've done both or one or the other.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, not every single time, but man, so many times that really is the solution.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I appreciate that. And it's been so fun talking to you and having you on here.
Thank you so much. Like I said, there's so much on this particular topic and just kind of the other parts about like just managing your basics. I didn't even touch on today, but there's a lot of information out there. And so I appreciate you giving me the time to have a little voice in this experience. So hopefully somebody learned something.
Yes, absolutely. And if people want to know more, where is the best way to connect with you?
Oh, that's a good question. So if they're just kind of curious about this sort of stuff, you can find me on Instagram at @2basics therapy. Or if you're like, man, she was so good, I need to make a therapy appointment with her. You can reach me at the private practice I'm with they're called T2S. And their phone number is 404-914-4782, or you can just email me at Rachael, RACHAEL @T2S Enterprises plural.com. And that all the information's on my Instagram too. So, and if for some reason you're like, you seem fine, but is there anybody else I could work with at T2S? There are other therapists who are taking new clients, and we're all pretty terrific, I think. So, we're kind of like a mom and pop shop in a really, really lovely way. I'm very grateful to work there.
Yeah, and if you get anybody that signs up because they're like, oh, we heard you on that podcast, I'm going to need some compensation for that.
I was going to say, we'll get you a little kickback. Yeah. So we could come visit you with our t-shirts, We'll stand outside your window and have a party or something.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And thank you for the work that you're doing for the mental health community, because it is stretching farther than you know, and it is very impactful. So yeah,
thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us today and the value that you bring. And we're not going to push that panic button. We're going to figure it out. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Rachael.
Thank you.